Good afternoon, everyone. Go ahead and take out your binder that we started last time. Remember, it can be a binder for any class. But we're going to start by looking at your Vocab Foldable from last time. So you should have filled in where you feel like you stand for all these I can statements. I know a lot of you are right here. As we go through the lessons, you can bump yourself up as you feel more confident in those areas. Let's go straight to your Vocab Foldable. I want you to pause this video for a moment and read through the vocabulary that we talked about last time. Okay, we ended with congruent. Okay, hopefully you had a chance to look through all that vocabulary. We're going to be adding some things to this today. Go ahead and put it aside for right now. We're going to finish the notes that we started. So take out page 4. This is use a compass and straight edge to construct circles and duplicate circles and line segments. Okay, so quickly before we left last time, we were given a line segment and we had to use our compass to create a circle with a radius the length of the line segment. So we did that. We made our circle. Then I wanted you to make a congruent circle. So let's say that this was our center point here. We're going to call this C. We want to make a circle congruent to circle B with a center at point C. So we would put our point there on C. And we already did this, but you would make your circle. Now we need to write a congruence statement for this. So a congruent statement, if you remember from last time, has a congruent symbol, and we're going to say circle B is congruent to circle C. Okay. Now that's for circles. Let's go ahead and take a look now at line segments. So my question is, how can we construct congruent line segments? Okay, let's look at an example for this. So I'm going to start with a line segment. We're going to call that line segment FG. Okay, remember a line segment is just a portion of a line. Lines go on forever and ever infinitely. Line segments, however, are just a part of that. So here's our line segment FG. Now if I want to create a line segment that's congruent to that, then what we're going to do is we're going to start with what I call a starter line. We want to make sure that it is longer than the line segment we're trying to duplicate. So I made it a little bit longer. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my compass. I'm going to measure, oh, let me first put a dot here too. We'll call this endpoint H, okay? Then we're going to go back and we're going to measure our line segment. And then I'm going to come down, I'm going to keep that measurement on my compass. I'm going to come down to my starter line where I've got my point H. I'm going to put the point of the compass there, and I'm going to arc my line. Okay? Now where that arc crosses my line is where I'm going to put my end point. We'll call this J. Okay? So we have measured this using our compass, and we can write a congruent statement now. We can say that line segment FG. Remember, it has the line on top with no arrows because this is a line segment, is congruent to line segment HJ. Okay. Now I want you to get some practice with this. So, my line segments, it doesn't matter how long your line segments are, as long as it fits on your notes. You're just going to draw a line segment, label it, and then create a congruent line segment to it. So let me put some lines on here, and then I'll give you a chance to put your lines on and then make congruent line segments and also write a congruent statement for each one. Okay, so for number 1, let's go with something a little smaller. Okay. I know that it's tempting when you're using a ruler to use the markings to actually measure the line. Please do not do that. We are considering the ruler a straight edge. We're pretending like there are no numbers on there, there are no measurements, and we are using our compass to construct congruency instead of measuring it. Okay, so here's another line segment. This is EF, and then we'll do one more. Make sure that you get a lot of practice in. Let's make this one a little bit longer. This is JK. We'll call this JK. Okay, just a reminder, you're going to start with a starter line. So you can put it underneath or next to. Just start with a line that you know is longer than the line segment. Measure that line segment with your compass. Come over to your new line and mark it. And then put your endpoints on and write a congruent statement. Go ahead and pause the video now and make congruent line segments for each of these and write congruent statements. And then when you are finished with that, press play again, and I'm going to show you how to do it just in case you had forgotten. All right, hopefully you had paused it and had a chance to practice. I'm going to make my congruent lines underneath because I'm going to run out of room down here. So I'm going to start with my starter line. I make it longer than my initial line segment so that I know I have enough room. I'm going to go ahead and put a point there. We're going to call this C. Now I'm going to go up with my compass. I'm going to measure A to B. Now I'm going to come down to my line. I'm going to put my point at C, and I'm going to arc my line. Okay. And then I can put my endpoint here, and I'm going to call this D. I'm not done yet, though. I want to write a congruent statement. So I'm going to say a line segment AB is congruent to line segment CD. I'm going to do the same for the next two. I'm going to start with a starter line that is longer than my line segment. I'm going to put an endpoint. I'm going to call this G. I'm going to go and measure my line segment that I'm trying to duplicate here. Once I've measured it with my compass, I'm going to keep that measurement. And I'm going to arc my line. Okay. I'm going to put an endpoint here. I'm going to call this H. Now we can write our congruent statement. We can say that EF, line segment EF, is congruent to line segment GH. Hopefully you're getting the hang of this. I'm going to do one more. And then we're going to wrap it up with the steps that we took to do this. So I did my starter line. I'm going to call this L. And I'm going to go up and I'm going to measure my line segment. And I'm going to mark it by making an arc. We can call that, put an endpoint here. I'm going to call this M. And I'm going to write my congruent statement. Line segment JK is congruent to line segment LM. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and turn our page over, and I ran out of room on this side. I would like to write the steps that we took so that you have that in your notes for future reference. So go ahead and turn your note page over. Okay. So what I want you to do is write steps. Okay, the first thing that we did is we drew, or you're going to draw a starter line that is longer than the line segment that you started with. Okay. The next thing that we do is we put an end point on one side of the line. The next thing that we did is we measured the line segment with our compass. So measure the length of the line segment with our compass. Step 4 is we are going to use the length on our compass to mark the starter line. And then lastly, we're going to put an end point at the mark on our starter line. Okay. Now what I want you to do is I want you to take this sheet of notes and we are going to put it back in your binder so that we don't lose it. So here's your binder. You have your math section. We know that this is page 4. We already have it labeled with a 4 from last time. Okay, we're going to put this in at page 4. Make sure your notes are in at page 3, and you're done.